What's going on, boxing fans? Gilberto Torres Jr. with Torres Boxing, and I hope you're having a great night. And I want to focus on one question, and that question is Keith one-time Thurman underestimating Manny Pacquiao? We are exactly 2 weeks away from the super fight, Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao versus Keith one-time Thurman, on July 20th on Fox pay-per-view at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Pacquiao will put his WBA regular welterweight title on the line against Keith Thurman's WBA Super World Championship, and this will be a fight that will also serve as a as a way to consolidate those two titles and to consolidate the WBA crown, because you have the regular title and you have the super title, which is considered the main one. So this is a fight to consolidate those two titles and determine who is the true legitimate world champion. And so that's interesting, but I do want to focus on that question: is Keith Thurman underestimating Manny Pacquiao? Personally, I believe that he is. I think that everything we've seen from Keith Thurman from the moment this fight was announced, from the initial press conference, during the entire lead up to the fight to this moment, Keith Thurman has shown little to no respect to the legendary fighter from the Philippines. And he's talked down to him. He's made fun of his physical attributes of just about anything. We all know that Pacquiao is a Christian, and Keith Thurman went on to say that he's going to crucify Manny Pacquiao, and that he's going to retire him from the sport, that he's going to do what Manny Pacquiao did to Oscar de la Hoya 11 years ago. And I think that's where the problem comes in. I think that Thurman really does believe, or at least a good bit of him believes, that Manny Pacquiao is done. That Manny Pacquiao is a fighter that can no longer deliver the goods. And I think that's the problem that he's having right now, is that he believes he's expecting an old and faded Manny Pacquiao. He's expecting a Pacquiao that's not going to be able to let his hands go, and that he's going to be able to put a beating on him. And I think that's a huge mistake on Keith Thurman's part. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen Keith Thurman's training footage as well. I've seen how he's preparing for this bout. He looks to be taking it very seriously, and I think that's a good thing. Of course, I believe that Pacquiao is too. And so I do believe that there's a side of him also that, keeps a professional, and he's getting prepared for this fight the right way. I know that this is his biggest fight to date. This is a fight that's gonna give him a lot of money, a lot of millions in his bank account. And at the same time, if he beats Manny Pacquiao, then that's a legendary fighter on his resume, and that'll set him up for even bigger paydays in the future. So I think he's taking that into account as well. But I also believe that he is, to a certain extent, underestimating Manny Pacquiao. And I think that he's thinking that he's going to get an old Pacquiao on July 20th, when everything that we've seen from Pacquiao in training camp is telling us something completely different. And as I mentioned in an earlier vid, I'm making it more of a habit to look into the training camps, how these fighters prepare, because I do believe that training camps can tell us a lot about how a fighter's going to perform on fight night. Again, it's not going to tell us everything. We're not necessarily seeing sparring footage either, because that's something that's very secretive, that they're just not going to reveal those sort of things, because that reveals techniques, strategies for the fight. But as far as the small bits of sparring that you do see, the training on the heavy bag, on the mitts, the road work, the shadow boxing, the speed bag, all those sort of exercises that we're seeing from both fighters and any fighter in general, I think it's a good thing to watch those things, because they're to a certain extent, they're indicative of how a fighter is going to look on fight night. And I made the comparison, and like I said, this is truly different. But it's kind of I can just bring it up just because, without having to compare it with, any training camp, but just looking at it objectively. When Muhammad Ali was preparing for Larry Holmes, obviously that fight was a fight which Muhammad Ali was battered, wasn't throwing anything, was already showing symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and it was just a very, very sad ending, a very sad fight to watch. And a lot of people possibly betted on Muhammad Ali, thinking that he was going to win, thinking that, hey, this is Muhammad Ali, I believe that he's going to win. So that nostalgia, that the hype surrounding the fight probably pushed a lot of people to believe in Muhammad Ali. And you can't blame them. This is a living legend at that time. But what happened was that Muhammad Ali was battered into submission. They didn't come out for the 11th round, and it was over. A lot of people could have been surprised that night, but if you had paid attention to his training camp, you would have seen the writing on the wall. You would have seen how Muhammad Ali wasn't looking like himself. His reflexes were slow. And again, this is probably a bad comparison because Ali's case was special. He was already suffering from Parkinson's disease, so it's not like he was just losing his reflexes because of old age. This was a medical issue that was really going on. But when you just consider the fact that at one point he looked very good and it was winning fights, and you could look at his training camps and say, hey, he's looking good. I'm expecting him to look good on fight night. Maybe some people didn't pay attention to the training camp leading up to the Larry Holmes fight and thought he was going to pull it off. But had they looked at the training camp footage, they would have seen something off in Ali's game. And I also try to look into, as another point of reference, I was looking at one of the most recent training camp videos for Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was a great fighter in his prime, in his era when he fought, Oscar De La Hoya and these other great fighters from that era. And he was quick, power, had a lot of velocity. Great fighter, but you see footage of him training in the twilight of his career, and he's just not hitting the heavy bag with any force. It's like just a very light practice, and it just didn't look like himself, like the Sugar Shane Mosley of old. And so that's why I think that it's important to look at these training footage videos, because it does to a certain extent tell us, give us an idea of how a fighter is going to perform come fight night. And with that being said, I know I kind of went on for a little bit longer than what I wanted to on that, but you see Manny Pacquiao, and you see a fighter that is 40 years of age, that may not be who he was 5-10 years ago, but when you see him in training right now, he looks motivated, he looks rejuvenated, he's hitting the heavy bag with power, with speed, moving around very well, he's throwing combinations, he doesn't look slow or sluggish. He's looking good on the mitts, on the very when he's doing the road work, running these long distances at a time. He's looking ripped. He's looking good, and Pacquiao just looks very strong right now in his training camp. And I see a fire in his eyes. I see him motivated, determined to prove Thurman wrong, to prove the doubters wrong that are saying Pacquiao's done. He's 40 years old. He's got nothing left in the tank. I think he's got a fire in him, and I think that's why he's gonna look to impress come July 20th. But if Thurman were to, I'm sure he's looking at Pacquiao's training as well, and he's having a great training of his own as well. But maybe he could not overestimate him or underestimate him, as much as he possibly might be, because like I said, this is speculation, of course. Maybe all of this is just talk on Thurman's behalf, trying to sell the fight. But I personally, from what I see, I do see a Thurman that's slightly underestimating a legend that has proven that he can still go, that has proven that he still has something left in the tank. And if Thurman doesn't recognize that, if Thurman doesn't at least give Pacquiao some respect, then I think he's going to be in for a long night because, again, Pacquiao looks good. He's showing that he can still compete at this level. He beat Lucas Matisse and Adrian Broner rather easily. Now he's facing an undefeated world champion who is known to throw more punches than for example, Broner has been throwing as of late. So this is a step up in competition for Manny Pacquiao, but at the same time, it's also a step up in competition for Keith one-time Thurman. And so I'm very excited about this fight. I do hope, and I hope that there's no excuses at the end of the night. Once that bell rings, once the verdict gets rendered and they announce who's the winner, I hope that it would be only after we have seen the best Manny Pacquiao and the best Keith Thurman going at it. But with that being said, I do hope that Keith Thurman does not underestimate Manny Pacquiao. I do think that he is, to a certain extent, doing just that. I think he's expecting an old Manny Pacquiao. I think he's thinking that Manny Pacquiao is going to come out like Oscar De La Hoya did against Pacquiao. But like Manny himself said, he's not Oscar De La Hoya. And I do believe him because he's looking strong and he's a real fighter at heart. And I think he still has something left to give. Now, does that mean that I'm pleased to see Pacquiao in a fight of this nature? And do I want to continue seeing him fight on? I really don't. And as some of you might know that have followed my page, either on Instagram, YouTube, or whatever, you understand that I've always wanted Manny Pacquiao. I would have preferred him to retire by now. You know, at one point, I would have been okay with a rematch against Jeff Horn. I don't think that's really going to be on the table. But the one fight that, if Pacquiao wants to continue to fight, that I would want to see him in would be that big fight with Floyd Mayweather. Why? Because they're around the same age, and it offers them a big payday that I do think that, you know, they would earn, obviously, for the star power. And Manny Pacquiao, in this case, just because he's ready to close out his career, and I think that no one can actually get mad at him for wanting to try to avenge that loss to Mayweather while also making a huge payday. So we'll see how it all goes, but hopefully, like I said, Thurman's not underestimating Manny. I believe he is, to a certain extent, doing just that. He's thinking that he's going to get an old Pacquiao, but I think Pacquiao's looking good, and so I'm expecting a great fight come July 20th. But guys, let me know what you guys think right there in the comment section. Go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell icon to receive further news on new content. And guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and have a great rest of your night.